Hi guys, Richard here, and welcome to my garden, where it's always sunny. You know that time in between Christmas, New Year, and going back to work in January? You've seen all of your friends, you've seen your family, you've had enough food and drink to last you a lifetime. You've opened your presents, and you've sung "O Come All Ye Faithful" more than enough times. You build an organ. You know, it's the usual sort of thing. Well, let me, in this video, show you the organ I built with my own hands. You'll have to excuse the rather pine central presentation here. You have to understand that when I built this, I didn't plan it at all. There's a shop in the UK called Homebase, and the design for the organ essentially came to mind from multiple trips to Homebase, seeing what wood they had, what sizes of wood they had, and could I make their predetermined cut pieces of wood into an organ. So it is pine, and caveat, it's not finished, okay? It isn't going to remain this wonderfully bright and sort of IKEA-like colour. Not at all. It's going to be much a darker colour, mahogany, oak colour. These features in the middle here are radiator covers. Nothing more glamorous than that, I'm afraid. But it allows the sound to come out. I have a speaker in here and in here, and this is just a false front. The original design, the original idea was to have speakers in here as well, but after hearing the two speakers in here, I didn't need it, to be honest. It's on wheels, so it can move around really easily, and the stand is adjustable. Just before we go inside the organ, let's talk about the best bit. This wonderful keyboard here. It's the bit which almost never came to be. When I was designing the organ, I had in my mind's eye a shelf sticking out here with a Yamaha or a Casio keyboard sitting on top of it. The sort of keyboard that is used a lot for Hauptwerk setups at home. But I couldn't quite work out how it was going to come out too far, and I didn't want it to stick out too far. And I wanted to take the keys out of the case. I couldn't work out how to do that. And I also wanted the organ to look like a genuine chamber organ. And having a Yamaha or any other type of keyboard sitting on top of the of a shelf here, that's not going to look like a chamber organ, is it? Let's face it. So Google search took me to a website and introduced me to Fabio Mancini. And this guy could not do enough to help me. I had a concert in 2 weeks' time. The organ had to be finished for the concert. I had been booked and it had been booked. It didn't exist yet. So we had to get this keyboard quick. And when it arrived, wow, my dreams were realised. The difficulty was, though, yes, the keyboard felt amazing. It has this wonderful touch to it. It feels good. It's made from real wood. It's teak and maple, and it does feel really, well, it's a real keyboard. It's a real chamber organ keyboard. The problem was, how on earth do I attach it to the chamber organ? So at the time, I had a bit of a rough hole here, and I had to reach out to an experienced joiner, a a guy who does kitchens and all sorts of wonderful DIY around the house. And he helped me with this. He attached the keyboard to the chamber organ. So this keyboard actually slides out. We can lock it in place and take it out and all of that. It has 5 divisionals really, but what I use these for are individual stops. So there are no jaw stops, obviously. Each of those 5 buttons is a stop. And we also have lockable sections here. Let's have a quick look inside these chambers at the speakers. So we have a chamber here. There's also one on the other side, obviously. And the speakers are floor standing speakers. They are Acoustic Solutions model 120. Don't know anything about them, to be honest, but I bought them 15 or so years ago for about £90. And they've been brilliant, actually. They are fantastic. Probably get them quite cheap on eBay. These are both fastened in with this shelf, this lock, this bracket here. Basically means that any vibrations is limited and they don't start wobbling around when we go out on tour. The radiator covers, you'll see, are screwed in, but they're also glued on. You don't want to have vibrations when playing the organ, and if you just screw the organ together, you're going to get those vibrations, those really annoying rattles. Glue actually prevents that. I glued it all the way around and screwed it, so any vibration is really, really limited. You'll also see down here this screw. That's the screw which holds the keyboard in place. Just take that out, but we need to detach the keyboard. And this bracket here isn't screwed onto the keyboard, but it just holds it down. Again, limits the vibrations and any movement. I wanted to have the sound projected away from the player. So the sound goes forwards, directly forwards, but it also comes out the side. When the organ's playing in the context of an orchestra, you can hear it all the way around. You don't want to lose sound behind. There are limitations to that. The organ often sits in front of the choir. The choir can't really hear the organ. And also, obviously, the sound goes away from the organist. So as a player, it's often difficult to gauge the levels. Now this is absolutely true. I haven't opened this organ since December of last year, and that's 8 months ago. I'm just expecting a bat to come flying out or a mouse to jump at me. So far, so good. Look, another laptop. You're getting the impression, right, that I love using laptops for organs. I don't. This laptop actually is only a 8GB of RAM laptop. Runs Windows 7 and has a dinosaur of a CPU. But luckily the chamber organ Hauptwerk sample doesn't require much at all in terms of RAM or CPU usage. This shelf here is where the speakers were going to go. I was going to have 2 speakers facing the front. As I said before, these speakers on the sides are good enough. I have a Cambridge audio amplifier. It's really, really good. It's a solid piece of kit. It never lets me down at all. Got that for £40, second hand. I've also got down here an audio interface. This is a Behringer 2-in, 2-out type interface. You might be wondering why on earth I've got one of those and an amplifier. Well, this interface acts as the sound card for the laptop. The sound from Hauptwerk comes out of the laptop through a USB into the audio interface here. This then puts the sound into the amplifier. I know it's complicated, but this is the way it works. Out of the audio interface into the amplifier, which then amplifies the sound, and then outputs the sound into the speakers. The speakers, unlike the speakers I've got inside, the speakers are not powered. If a speaker is powered, I'm sorry to those people who know this already, if a speaker is powered, it essentially has an inbuilt amplifier. These speakers don't have inbuilt amplifiers, so they need an external amplifier. I mean, it's really rather simple, isn't it? The keyboard here is a MIDI keyboard, just like a Yamaha or a Casio. That goes directly into the laptop via a MIDI to USB connection, and then into Hauptwerk, and then the usual thing happens, which I'm sure you're so familiar with. So whilst I've got you, whilst the organ's open, let's plug it in and turn it on, shall we? This has not been turned on in 8 months, so anything could happen. Stay tuned. Right, so the first time this organ has been turned on for 8 months. Fans just come on. So incredibly, despite the age of this laptop, it took no time at all to load. It really didn't. It hasn't got an SSD hard drive. It's got no bells, certainly no whistles, and it just works really well. So what we have loaded on here, funnily enough, is a chamber organ. It's the Prib chamber organ by Sonos Paradisi. It's really rather old now, but it still sounds really rather beautiful. 5 stops, starting with an 8-foot Borden. I'm going to add a 4-foot flute to that. And we also have a 2-foot principal. There's a quint, which is a 1 1/3. And then a 2-rank mixture. You know, the wonderful thing about this organ being electric and having no pipes is everything is completely adjustable. Pitch, volumes on each pipe, EQ, you can turn the bass down for certain notes which have a, an acoustically bass heavy effect in this organ. You can do all sorts, and of course it doesn't ever go out of tune. So carrying it around, wheeling it down those church lanes doesn't cause any issues with tuning. It just sometimes disconnects some of the cables inside, and it causes a little bit of head scratching when I get it into a church, and it doesn't work. You know, I would say that building one of these things is actually rather straightforward. It looks like it's a big project. It was a long project, and it's ongoing, but I wouldn't say it was a difficult project. It just required a little bit of patience and thought. I haven't got any patience, by the way. You will get to know that over time. I don't have any patience at all. So when I woke up that one day a few years ago, wanted to build an organ, I just went to buy the bits and built it. But the advice I would give you is the keyboard is, I think, the hardest bit to attach to the organ. It has to be the right height. It has to feel like a real organ. Getting that right is so crucial to the success of an instrument like this. Also the way it looks, it has to look like something which would sit well within an orchestra. In terms of tech, the 2 floor standing speakers in here are fairly cheap. I wouldn't go overboard with getting something really overpriced. For a chamber organ Hauptwerk sample, you don't need a particularly state-of-the-art computer. An old laptop will do the trick. I'd probably say get 8 GB of RAM, a good hard drive, just for faster loading times. When I say a good hard drive, I mean an SSD, just for the loading times, nothing else. You want to get a reliable audio interface and a good amplifier, which won't overheat. Apart from that, do you know what? There's nothing more to it. Welcome to another part of the garden where the sun is just currently behind a cloud, but it will come out in any second. I thought I would play to you the Galliard to the Third Paviane by William Byrd. This will show off the colours of the instrument, starting on the 8 and 4, then building up all the way to the mixture. And of course there will be a little bit of added reverberation there. The garden isn't that good for the acoustics. Thank you all so much for watching this, and thank you for showing an interest in this, my little baby. She's known as Little Bertha. Any questions? Any comments? Let me know in the comment section below, and click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, I will say cheerio.